Bonjour, ça va? Ça va bien, merci. Here we are in Paris. Some people call it the city of love. Some people call it the center of culture, fashion, and art. But you know what I call Paris? 2015, I call it the real estate investment capital of the world.
One more again.
One night later. But first, a history lesson. Come on. It'll be fun, I promise. 2,000 years in under 2 minutes. Really, come on.
I left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day.
Okay, here we are at point zero. It's from this point that all other places in Paris are measured. What does that mean? Notre Dame is right there, but in actuality, we're surrounded by water. We are on an island called Ile de la Cité, and it's on this island that Paris was born.
Rolling
Rolling
on a river.
The mention of an island on the River Seine appears in history through Julius Caesar, who writes about it several times in the Gallic Wars. From before Roman times, throughout the Middle Ages, Ile de la Cité became an important seat of religious, military, and political power. By the time of the Renaissance, the borders of Paris had grown from its center to resemble the city we know today. Gone are the moats that protected it from invasion. In their place is a freeway called the Périphérique. It's on and off ramps replacing the doors and drawbridges of old. What's the point? Well, let's check out rich dad Robert Kiyosaki, who's in Texas for an interview.
I buy apartment houses next to oil wells. And as long as Texas has oil, you will have jobs. Now, if Texas runs dry, you're in trouble.
Yes.
But I don't think that's going to happen. So when people ask me where I invest, I don't invest in Hawaii, because Hawaii ain't got any oil. I mean, it is just common sense. Real estate is only as good as there are jobs. I mean, you don't have to go to Harvard to figure that one out, you know.
Now, Robert owns 3,500 rental units, so he knows what he's talking about. One problem. Back in Paris, France, they aren't really that big on petroleum. 80% of their energy comes from nuclear power. But what France excels at and what drives the economy is rail transport. Each stop is like a geyser of humanity, where a river of jobs and commerce flow into the surrounding neighborhood. Imagine if you could know which rail stops were going to be built before they built them. That would be a real estate investor's dream come true. No need to dream. Let's check out the biggest little secret in the real estate world today. Introducing Le Grand Paris Express.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut that because we don't want the sensors going crazy. How's it going, everybody? Don't need any more copyright strikes, right? So, yes, that video was actually now more than 10 years old, and I went from talking about the Le Grand Paris Express to actually getting videos now where I can have this gorgeous French African AI princess say it all for me.
You know, for decades, when you thought European finance, you really only thought of one city, London. But what if I told you that a perfect storm, a massive political shockwave, and one of the biggest infrastructure projects in Europe is completely shaking things up? We're going to dive in and ask a huge question. Is Paris building the actual hardware to become Europe's next Wall Street?
All right, let's give it up. If you've got a name that I can name my favorite avatar there, just put it in the chat. So what am I talking about? I've been seeing versions of this story for more than a decade now. The insight was there, but the tools weren't. You couldn't visualize systems dynamically. You couldn't synthesize complex signals fast enough, and you couldn't really distribute serious thinking without gatekeepers. It wasn't very long ago. There were certain subjects you just couldn't talk about. So now the tools exist. The stakes are real. And the audience is ready for conversations that go deeper than the headlines. So gravity doesn't announce when it shifts. It simply recognizes the world. Right? Gravity doesn't announce when it shifts. It simply recognizes the world. And that's what we're going to talk about here today is our series that we're finishing up. This is wrapping up our series. It was from Act 1 to Act 6, so this is the last act, number 7. And so Gravity Shifts explores how global power reorganizes how global power reorganizes when old stabilizers are weakened. From America's inward turn, right, America first, and Europe's structural pressures, it has many, to the rise of new infrastructure, mobility in cities as new centers of economic gravity, a systems-driven series on where the next decade of power, capital, and coordination is quietly forming is this series right here. So, we're going to go through them really quick, and this should be a short one today. So, Act 1, America has quietly redefined financial stability around domestic priorities and global stewardship. I think America's finance chief just yesterday freaked everybody out. He went there and said, hey, globalism is over, all right? So just sourcing the cheapest manufacturing you can find and distributing that around the world is not a workable model anymore. It really helps no one. And so this first, and everybody just freaked out. What? No more global tree hugging? This episode explores how tariffs, energy dominance, and inward economic policy signal a structural retreat from underwriting the global system, triggering downstream consequences for allies, markets, and geopolitical alignment. That was Act 1. And we talk about how it's just the nature of the beast. It's all of these things coming together. It's not just, this America First policy. It's everything combining together. And you couldn't talk about this. You couldn't talk about the effects of COVID on the economy or the Ukraine war. You had to take the establishment position, and if you didn't, they would pull your videos off of your site, like what happened to me. And so Act 2, Gravity Shifts, why Ukraine changed Europe forever. this was a lot of fun to produce, because you couldn't talk about Ukraine before without just like demonizing Putin and then putting Zelensky on a pedestal. It's the only way you could talk about Ukraine. So the Ukraine war didn't just reshape security politics. It stress tested Europe, all right? This is the important thing to understand about the Ukraine war. It stress tested Europe's real operational capacity. Europe couldn't do anything without America. It had no ISR capabilities, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. It had to, everything from the weapon systems to the intelligence. It relied on the United States. So this episode examines, number 2, examines how NATO dependency, logistics constraints, energy exposure, and industrial limits revealed Europe's structural reliance on external stabilization. Right? And so Donald Trump yesterday was very clear. He was like, NATO, what have you done for us lately? I thought that was hilarious. He's like, we do everything for you. You don't do anything for us. We're asking to make a deal on Greenland. So so this Golden Dome thing, which is going to protect Europe, that's going to stop any type of attack from the China or Russia, right? What are you just gonna whine and moan, or are you gonna try to help us make a deal? He was very upfront, and the European leaders were like, "What's?" So, act number 3: gravity shifts. The real risk to Europe isn't Russia; it's math. This is the real structural problem. If you look at it, Europe's greatest vulnerability is not, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Europe's greatest vulnerabilities are internal: aging demographics, labor shortages, immigration tension, energy costs, regulatory drag, and even the inability to adopt AI without lathering it in European regulations and red tape, and also capital leakage. This episode shows how these compounding pressures strain Europe's long-term competitiveness and strategic resilience, because Europe's in a very, very strange place right now. With the influx of illegal immigration, or these cultures from North Africa and from around the world aren't assimilating. They're just kind of like, look, we're here, we're going to build our culture within your culture. That is wearing really super thin with countries like Ireland, Britain, and France. And as the government tries to say, well, diversity, people are starting to say, sorry, we're tired of this. And the problem is that influx is replacing a demographic which is not reproducing enough babies to grow the population. So with the immigration and all the problems that this multicultural initiative creates, right? That very immigration adds people to the population, but you take that immigration away, and it's like a 75% swing in terms of the ratio of people to the economy, right? So it's a very, very sort of strange place that Western countries are in now, and if this baby making trend doesn't reverse very soon, it could be a very, very interesting time for Europe and for the Western world. And number 4, gravity shift. Gravity shifts. Act number 4. History doesn't repeat, but systems do. History doesn't repeat, but systems do. This is really important because people try to say, well, times are different today, so on and so forth. That may be true, but systems still are based in the way humans interact and the way markets flow within that interaction. So, pre-World War I, Europe believed economic integration guaranteed stability, right? The Belle Epoque, the Gilded Age. Everybody's predicting the end of poverty until hidden structural fragility was exposed. And what we talk about in this episode is World War I didn't happen in France, didn't start off in France or in Germany. It was kicked off in the Caucasus. It was kicked off in Yugoslavia when somebody assassinated the king of Yugoslavia and his wife and his queen, right? And because that area of the world wasn't as integrated and as important from an economic standpoint to Europe as a whole, it served as the catalyst which uncovered all of the structural weaknesses that were there and being covered over by this sort of false structure of stability. And so we see the very same inputs now. And what I love about this thumbnail is you have all these people in a cafe, dressed to the nines, and then there's these World War I soldiers ready to deploy. So, act number 5, gravity shifts why infrastructure becomes sovereignty in a fragmented world. When external stabilizers weaken, systems reorganize around what still functions, right? What still functions when everything starts to go haywire? Well, connectivity, logistics, mobility, and coordination. Those are the things that you can say, okay, this is sort of the foundation of what we have. Everything is kind of crazy right now. And so this episode here talks about that in detail. Act number 5. And explains why infrastructure increasingly becomes the true expression of sovereignty and how new centers of gravity quietly emerge. And then that brought us to act number 6. And this is a story that I've been aware of since for 10 years back in the day, and so I put this together so I've got the what is it, Ike and Tina Turner doing maybe here, this is what I'll do. I'll turn the sound off, yeah. And then I'll just keep the original audio, which should be right here. Okay. Yeah. And so you see these machines, this was 10 years ago, and they were drilling underneath the ground, creating 400, doubling the track beneath the ground, just drilling this with this giant, huge, massive drill. And so you could see, here's a station that didn't exist, and it, where each station would appear, you'd have just all of this wealth creation happening, buildings going up. And so I just knew back then, just from living it day by day in Paris, that I could see the power. And then when you take the fact that, you know, after COVID, after the EU and America put $500 billion into the Ukraine war, like, and everything vanished. All the F-15s, all the HMARs, the HIMARS, the Bradley fighting vehicles, all of the Patriot weapon systems, they all got obliterated during the war. So it's all this investment into what? Right? And so this episode, the last episode, talks about how we're at one part of Europe, you have all of this infrastructure being just completely destroyed, and you know, through the horrors of war. And at the other end, right in the western part of Europe, you've got $50 billion going into this infrastructure system, which is going to connect all of these, they call them clusters, all of these hubs of science and of education and so on and so forth. So the Grand Prix Express is not just a transit project, it's a platform reshaping the economic gravity, labor mobility, capital flow, and innovation density. This episode, the last episode, explores why Paris may be structurally positioned to become Europe's next major coordination and financial center, or as I call it, the Wall Street of Europe. So that was the Gravity Shifts series. And I created the series. Oh, hold on a second. I created the series specifically because I knew that if you've got a global brand, right? If you are providing a service or a product that people use from around the world, you can't look at the world through a hysterical political lens. You have to be agnostic. You can't just be like, oh, everything that's going on with Trump is bad and everything that is supporting Zelensky is good, and you can't be black and white like that. You have to say, this is the reality. This is what's happening. This is where Europe is strong. This is where Europe is weak. And from that agnostic, just sort of bare bones perspective, you can make realistic assessments and create a marketing, service, product strategy from what you see. And so what I see as a tremendous opportunity is in hospitality and in air travel, private air travel. If you have metro times going from Charles de Gaulle, Le Bourget, Orly, right? If those times have been shrunk by half or more, so you're getting off of Charles de Gaulle Airport, you're picking up your bags, you're in a high-speed rail in Paris in a half an hour. Okay, that's huge. And so if you have an air charter service, you could be flying people in, they could be using the top class first top shelf, first of class train system, right? So you can have these mobility corridors from Paris to Nice, from Paris to Frankfurt, from Paris to Barcelona. That can be that corridor can be owned by the mobility, the hospitality, the stay company. It could be owned by the air charter service. Somebody who's serving that customer that wants to get from point A to point B, and then to travel within that corridor. And so let's say you've got like a Marriott or Hyatt in Barcelona, and you've got a Marriott or Hyatt in Paris, and you've got a charter company that brings the person into this mobility corridor, and everybody can work together to make that experience super tight, super smooth, and a memorable experience. And so, and then you really can't be thinking like that if you're caught up in the emotional side of, the way politics are today. So that's the reason that I created the Gravity Shifts series, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I did making it. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Au revoir.